I took my nephew, and when my sister was arrested, I fed him, enrolled him in school, got him therapy. After 2 years, she showed up sober and asked for a visit. I agreed. The next day, I came home to an empty room and a note. He's my son, not yours. Stay away. I tried calling, she blocked me. 3 months later, I got a call from Child Services. You're listed as emergency contact. He's been abandoned again. When my phone rang that night 2 years ago, I knew it was bad news before I even picked up. It was 2:17 a.m. Nobody calls with good news at that time. It was the police. My sister, Hannah, had been arrested. Again. This time, it wasn't just a drunk and disorderly. It wasn't even just possession. She had gotten picked up for endangering a child, her child, my nephew Caleb. They found her passed out behind the wheel of a car parked halfway onto a sidewalk. Caleb was sitting in the back seat, wide awake, scared out of his mind, clutching a juice box and a Spider-Man toy. I felt sick when the officer told me, I'm not a saint. I didn't jump up excited at the thought of taking him in. I was scared. I was 42, single, working 2 jobs to keep my mortgage paid in a small town outside Pittsburgh. My life was barely put together on the best days. But what was the choice? Let him go into foster care? I drove over to the station and picked him up. He looked even smaller than I remembered. Big brown eyes, dirt on his cheeks, shoes on the wrong feet. He ran to me without a second's hesitation. I hugged him as tight as I could. I told him it was okay, even though it wasn't. It was not okay at all. From that night forward, he was mine. The first few months were brutal. Caleb didn't sleep through the night. He had nightmares almost every night and would come crawl into my bed, whispering, "Can I stay here?" He didn't know how to tie his shoes. He didn't know how to write his own name properly. He barely spoke at school. I got him into therapy with a counselor who specialized in kids with trauma. I enrolled him at the elementary school down the road. I bought him clothes, real ones, not the threadbare stuff he'd been wearing. I learned how to make chicken nuggets exactly the way he liked, not too crispy, not too soft. On weekends, we would go to the park. I watched him learn how to trust again. He started smiling more, laughing, making friends. I kept everything steady. I made sure homework was done. Bedtime was strict. Hugs were endless. It wasn't easy. God, it wasn't easy. There were days I thought I couldn't do it anymore. Days where he would cry and scream for his mom, and I would have to sit there, helpless, trying not to cry too. I never talked badly about Hannah to him, no matter how angry I was at her. No matter how deep the betrayal went. I told him, your mom loves you. She's just sick right now. But we're gonna be okay. Because that's what you do when you're the adult. 2 years passed. Slowly, I let my guard down. I thought maybe we had turned a corner. Hannah had disappeared during that time. No calls, no visits, nothing. A few times, I thought maybe she was dead. Then out of the blue, she called. I almost didn't answer. But something in me made me pick up. She sounded different. Clear. Steady. She told me she was clean. She said she'd been through rehab, was living in a sober house in downtown Pittsburgh, and was attending meetings every day. She said she wanted to see Caleb. I didn't say yes right away. I told her I'd have to think about it. I told her I'd have to talk to Caleb's therapist. But in the end, I agreed. We set up a supervised visit at my house. I made sure my neighbor, a retired cop named Mr. Grady, was home and alert, just in case. The visit went fine, honestly. Caleb was shy at first, but after a while, he warmed up to her. Hannah cried a lot. She kept saying, "I'm so sorry, baby. Mommy's better now." I didn't trust her. I'll be honest about that. But Caleb needed his mom, didn't he? He needed to know she was trying. She stayed for a couple of hours, then left. I thought, maybe this will be okay. Maybe we can slowly build something safe for him. The next day, I came home from work to an empty bedroom. His clothes were gone. His toys were gone. His Spider-Man sheets were stripped off the bed. On the dresser was a handwritten note. "He's my son, not yours. Stay away." I felt like the air got punched out of my lungs. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. I called again, and again, and again. Blocked. I went to the police. They said it was a civil matter. Custody had never been formally transferred to me. I had been caring for him informally all that time. I called lawyers. They told me the same thing. Unless I had legal guardianship paperwork, my hands were tied. I stayed up all night sitting on the floor of his empty room, just staring at the walls. Weeks passed. Then months. Nothing. No word. I kept checking Facebook. Nothing. I kept calling old friends, old neighbors, anyone who might know where she was. I hated her. I hated her with every cell in my body. But more than that, I worried about Caleb. Was he eating? Was he sleeping? Was he scared? Had she relapsed? There were nights I'd be lying in bed and hear a car outside and pray it was them coming back. And there were other nights I wished I could erase every memory of her from his mind. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate. Work was a joke. I was a shell of myself. Everyone told me to move on. "He's her son," they'd say. "You did your best." They didn't understand. Caleb was my son, too. Maybe not by blood, maybe not by law, but by every action, every sacrifice, every bedtime story, every packed lunch, every scraped knee, he was mine. Then 3 months after she took him, I got a call. It was Child Protective Services. The woman on the other end was polite but brisk. "You're listed as an emergency contact," she said. "Caleb has been abandoned." I dropped the phone. Literally dropped it. It clattered onto the kitchen floor. I scrambled to pick it up, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. They had found him in a shelter. Alone. Hannah had dropped him off and never came back. He was sitting there with a plastic bag of clothes and a crumpled Spider-Man toy. They asked me if I could come get him. I didn't even hang up. I just grabbed my keys and ran out the door. When I got there, he was sitting on a bench, swinging his legs back and forth. When he saw me, he didn't run to me this time. He didn't smile. He just looked up at me with this hollow, tired expression. I knelt down in front of him and said, "Hey, buddy. I'm here." He whispered, "You came." I pulled him into my arms and didn't let go for a long time. When I finally got him home, back into the house, back into his room, I hadn't touched a thing, just in case. He crawled into his bed and cried himself to sleep. I sat in the rocking chair next to his bed all night, just watching him breathe. I swore to myself right then, never again. The next morning, I called every lawyer I could find. I didn't care if I had to take a second mortgage on my house. I didn't care if I had to sell my car. I was getting full legal custody. This time, there would be no loopholes. No civil matters. No notes on dressers. He was staying with me. Forever. The first lawyer I hired was a joke. He smiled too much, patted my shoulder like I was a child, and said things like, "Don't worry, we'll sort it out." But every time we went to court, it felt like we were barely staying afloat. Hannah didn't show up to the first hearing. Or the second. Her court-appointed lawyer tried to argue that she deserved a second chance. That rehab had given her tools. That being a mother was her right. The judge wasn't buying it. Especially not after Child Services laid out the timeline. Abandonment. No contact. A history of drug use and criminal charges. I thought it would be clean and quick. But it wasn't. Turns out, Hannah had family I didn't even know about. Distant cousins on her dad's side. People I hadn't seen in 20 years. Somehow, they got wind of what was happening, and they showed up claiming they wanted custody of Caleb. Not because they cared about him. No. They saw a way to get state benefits, a monthly check, and maybe leverage Caleb into forcing Hannah to come home and take care of them. I couldn't believe it. People who hadn't sent Caleb so much as a birthday card were suddenly acting like they loved him more than life itself. The judge ordered home studies, background checks, psychological evaluations. Months dragged on. Every time I thought we were close to being done, something else came up. Meanwhile, Caleb was falling apart again. The kid who had finally started sleeping through the night was waking up screaming again, wetting the bed, refusing to eat. Every day when I dropped him off at school, he'd cling to me like he thought I wouldn't come back. I started sleeping on the floor of his room again. We were both wrecks. One night, about 6 months into the court mess, I heard glass shatter outside. At first, I thought maybe it was a raccoon or something. We live pretty close to the woods. But when I got to the living room, I saw it. My front window was smashed. A rock was lying on the carpet. I ran outside, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. In the street, I saw a car speeding away. I didn't get the license plate, but I didn't have to. The next morning, someone spray-painted "thief" on my mailbox. No signature, no note. Just that word. I reported it to the police. Filed a report, but there wasn't much they could do. No proof it was Hannah or her trashy cousins. But I knew. I just knew. They saw me as the bad guy. The one standing in the way of family being reunited. Never mind that Caleb didn't even know these people. Never mind that they had never once showed up when he needed help. The pressure started getting to me. I missed work deadlines. I started snapping at friends. People who used to support me started pulling away. I heard the whispers, maybe he should be with blood relatives. Maybe she's changed. I wanted to scream. Where were they when Caleb was crying on my couch? Where were they when I was scrubbing puke out of the carpet at 2 a.m. because he had night terrors? Where were they when he called me dad by mistake and then cried because he thought he'd hurt my feelings? Family isn't blood. Family is showing up. Every damn day. Then came the biggest twist of all. At the next hearing, Hannah showed up. Not alone. She walked in holding hands with a man I had never seen before. Big guy, neck tattoos, mirrored sunglasses pushed up onto his head. Her lawyer announced that they had just gotten married. Legally married. And now he wanted to adopt Caleb too. They said it with big fake smiles, like it was some beautiful happy ending. The judge asked Hannah straight up, "Where have you been living for the last 6 months?" She stammered. Said she had been finding herself. The judge asked, "When is the last time you spoke to your son?" She couldn't answer. The whole courtroom was dead silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. After court, as we were leaving the building, the new husband walked right up to me. Close enough that I could smell the cigarette smoke and cheap cologne pouring off him. He leaned in real casual and said, "You should let this go, man. You're never gonna win." I didn't say a word. I just stared at him until he finally stepped back. But that night, when I double-checked the locks, I realized my hands were shaking. I started sleeping with a baseball bat next to my bed. I bought cameras for every door and window. I wasn't taking any chances. Then another twist. One of the cousins, the loudest one who kept saying she wanted custody, got arrested. Shoplifting and assault at a Walmart. Great family values, right? Her mugshot hit Facebook within hours. Her face was puffy, mouth twisted in a half-smirk. I printed it out and stapled it to my court paperwork. Evidence. Proof these people weren't safe for Caleb. But it still didn't end the case. The judge decided we needed one more thing, a psychological evaluation for everyone involved. Me, Hannah, her new husband. We each had to go sit with a state-appointed therapist and get evaluated. I didn't mind. I had nothing to hide. But when I sat in that office, trying to explain everything, how I became Caleb's guardian, how Hannah stole him back, how he ended up abandoned again, I realized how crazy it all sounded. It sounded like a soap opera. The therapist asked me, "What will you do if the court awards custody to someone else?" I said, "Without hesitation, I'll fight. Every day. Until they realize what a mistake they made." because there was no scenario where I just walked away. Not ever. At Caleb's next therapy session, his counselor pulled me aside. She said, "He's scared they're going to take him away again. He doesn't know how to say it, but he's terrified." I sat in my car afterward and cried for the first time in months. Ugly cried. Because I knew exactly how he felt. Every day, I was living with the fear that some stranger in a black robe could decide we didn't belong to each other. That all my work, all my love, would be erased by one bad decision. Then something happened that changed everything. One night, while I was cooking dinner, Caleb came into the kitchen holding a crumpled piece of paper. He handed it to me, his little hands shaking. It was a letter, written in shaky handwriting, probably his mom's. It said, "I'm sorry. I'm not ready. I can't be what he needs. Please don't hate me." No return address. No signature. Just that. But it was enough. Enough to prove that Hannah herself admitted she wasn't capable of caring for him. Enough to show the court that Caleb's best chance was with me. I scanned that letter. I sent copies to my lawyer, to the court, to the therapist. I locked the original in a fireproof safe. I wasn't letting anyone lose it. But even with that letter, the fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After we found the letter, I thought it was over. I thought maybe the court would look at it, see reason, and end this nightmare. But instead, it somehow got worse. At the next hearing, Hannah's new husband, let's call him Craig, got up and started claiming that he was Caleb's real father. Not biological, no. He argued that since he had stepped up as a husband, he should have full parental rights now. It was pure insanity. Everyone knew it was a lie. Caleb hadn't even met Craig until a few months ago. But Craig was standing there, calm as a corpse, swearing he was ready to raise Caleb right. My lawyer nearly choked trying to object. The judge agreed to a DNA test, just to shut it down legally. Of course, Craig wasn't Caleb's biological anything. Still, it ate up another 2 months. Another 2 months of Caleb crying every night. Another 2 months of waiting, wondering, hoping the court would see the truth before it was too late. Then there was the day someone tried to break into my house. I was at work. Caleb was at school. Thank God for the cameras I had installed. The motion sensor alerted my phone. I opened the app and watched, in real time, a grainy figure in a hoodie and jeans trying to pry open my back door with a crowbar. I called the cops immediately. They showed up fast, but whoever it was got away. They didn't take anything. But they left a message. Carved into the wooden door frame were the words, "You stole him." I sat on the kitchen floor, shaking, clutching the baseball bat I kept next to the fridge. I wasn't just scared anymore. I was angry. Really, truly angry in a way that burned down to my bones. These people, Hannah, Craig, the cousins, whoever else was whispering in the dark, didn't care about Caleb. They didn't care what they were doing to him. It was about control. About pride. About not wanting to admit they had failed him. And I had to be the one to stand between him and the fire. Meanwhile, Caleb was slipping. He stopped smiling. He stopped playing with the other kids at school. He stopped talking much at all. His teachers were worried. His therapist was worried. I was out of my mind worried. One night, after another nightmare woke him up, he told me, in a tiny voice, "If they take me away again, I'll just run away." He meant it. He was only 8 years old, but he meant every word. I promised him he wouldn't have to run. That I would never let them take him again. But the truth was, I didn't know what the court would decide. I was just hoping, praying. And praying hadn't done me much good so far. Then another twist came crashing in. Hannah was arrested again. This time, it wasn't just drugs. She and Craig had gotten caught running a credit card scam, stealing identities, racking up thousands of dollars in charges on stolen cards. I found out through a late-night news alert on my phone. Their mugshots were side by side, hers, thin and hollow-eyed, his, sneering at the camera. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like fate was finally catching up to them. At the next hearing, my lawyer walked in waving a copy of the police report like a victory flag. The judge's face was stony. He didn't smile. He didn't say much. He just set a final custody hearing date for 2 weeks later. 2 weeks until I could officially legally make Caleb mine forever. But of course, it couldn't be that simple. 2 days before the final hearing, Caleb went missing. I was at work when the school called. "Caleb's not here," the secretary said. "Did someone else pick him up?" I felt the world tilt sideways. "No," I said. "No one else should have picked him up." I was already running for my car. My mind was spinning. Who? How? What happened? The security footage showed him leaving with a woman. Not Hannah. Not one of the cousins. Someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. I called the cops. Filed a report. Sat by my phone, hands numb, while every second dragged on like an hour. Where was he? Was he scared? Was he hurt? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't eat. I just sat by the window, waiting. It took 18 hours to find him. They found him 2 counties over, in a cheap motel room. The woman was some old friend of Hannah's, a woman she had met in rehab. Hannah had promised her money to grab Caleb and hide him until after the custody hearing. In exchange, she would get a cut of the imaginary lawsuit they were planning to file against me. When the cops burst into the motel room, Caleb was curled up in a corner, clutching his Spider-Man toy. Same one he had when he was a toddler. Same one he had carried into my house the first night I took him in. When I picked him up at the police station, he didn't say anything. He just buried his face in my chest and held on so tight I thought he might break my ribs. After that, the judge didn't waste any more time. Emergency custody was granted on the spot. Not permanent yet, but close. So close I could taste it. But there was still one last blow coming. Because even locked up, Hannah wasn't done. She sent a letter to the court. It was full of rambling nonsense. Accusations against me, against the police, against the court itself. She accused me of brainwashing Caleb, of stealing her life, of turning him against her. It was desperate, delusional, but it scared me, because crazy people don't care about rules. And Caleb deserved better than a life spent looking over his shoulder. So I filed a restraining order against her, against Craig, against every cousin who had ever so much as breathed in Caleb's direction. I locked down everything. Our house, our phones, even Caleb's school information. No one was getting near him without going through me first. And yet, despite everything, Caleb kept asking about her. Not all the time, but sometimes. Late at night, when he thought I was asleep. Or when a kid at school mentioned their mom. I didn't lie. I told him, "She's sick. But it's not your fault. None of it is your fault." Because that's the truth. None of this was ever his fault. He didn't ask to be born into chaos. He didn't ask to be used as a pawn. He deserved peace, love, stability. He deserved a childhood. And I was going to give it to him if it killed me. The final custody hearing was set for a cold morning in January. Gray sky, biting wind. The kind of day where the whole world feels like it's holding its breath. I put Caleb in his best clothes, a clean button-down shirt, khakis, and his Spider-Man sneakers. He asked if he could bring his toy. I told him yes. I wore my old suit. It didn't fit great anymore, a little tight around the middle, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was showing the judge I was the right person to keep him safe. When we got there, I saw Hannah sitting at the defendant's table. She looked bad. Thin, sickly, a shadow of the sister I used to know. Craig wasn't with her. He was still sitting in jail on unrelated charges, facing a few years inside if he didn't cut a deal. The cousins? Gone. Faded back into whatever hole they crawled out of once it became clear there was no money in this. It was just her. And me. And Caleb. The judge came in. We stood. We sat. My lawyer made his final arguments. Then Hannah's lawyer stood up and said Hannah wanted to address the court directly. The judge allowed it. She stood up, hands shaking, eyes wild. And she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "He's my son. I gave birth to him. I have a right to him, no matter what mistakes I made. Blood matters. Blood matters more than anything." She looked right at me when she said it. I didn't flinch. Because for the first time in years, I saw her clearly, a woman who would rather destroy her own child than admit she wasn't capable of loving him the way he needed. The judge listened patiently, then asked Caleb's therapist to speak. The therapist didn't hold back. She talked about the trauma, the abandonment, the fear. She talked about how Caleb only felt safe with me, how the mere mention of being taken away again triggered panic attacks and bedwetting and night terrors. She said, simply, to take him away now would be an act of cruelty. The judge nodded slowly, and then he ruled. Permanent, full custody to me. Effective immediately. Restraining order against Hannah made permanent for 10 years. No contact. No letters. No calls. No showing up at school plays or soccer games. Nothing. I thought I would feel triumphant. Victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. Like I had won a war but lost too many battles along the way to celebrate. Caleb squeezed my hand as we left the courtroom. That made it worth it. But the story wasn't done yet. About 2 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered. But something made me pick up. It was Hannah, calling from jail. She sounded small, beaten. She asked if she could speak to Caleb. I said no. She begged. She cried. She said she was getting clean for real this time. I listened. Then I told her the truth. You made your choice. Over and over again. You chose drugs. You chose crime. You chose yourself. Caleb deserves better. She sobbed. She cursed me. She called me a thief, a liar, a traitor. I let her scream until she ran out of words. Then I hung up. Blocked the number. Never looked back. A few weeks after that, I found out through a mutual old friend that Hannah had tried to file a lawsuit against me from prison, claiming I had manipulated her when she was vulnerable, that I had stolen her son. The court threw it out before it even hit a judge's desk. Frivolous. Insane. Baseless. But it showed me something. She wasn't sorry. She was still trying to find a way to blame me instead of facing what she had done. There would be no redemption arc for her. No heartfelt reunion years down the line. No miracle turnaround. Meanwhile, Caleb and I built a life. Slowly, brick by brick. He started sleeping through the night again. Started smiling again. We started traditions, Sunday pancakes, Friday movie nights, trips to the park on warm evenings. He called me uncle sometimes, dad other times. I never corrected him. He could call me whatever he wanted. He was home. He was safe. That's all that mattered. And yet, every once in a while, when the sky turned gray and the wind whipped cold around the corners of the house, I would find myself sitting by the window, thinking about Hannah, about how close she had come to ruining him, about how close I had come to losing him, and about my own mistakes, trusting her too soon, being too naive, letting my guard down when he needed me most. I hated her for what she did. But I hated myself, too, sometimes, for not protecting him better. That's something I'll carry forever. A scar no one can see. A reminder that sometimes love isn't enough if you're not willing to fight dirty for it. I used to think revenge meant getting even, making the people who hurt you pay. But now I know the real revenge. The real revenge is raising Caleb into a man who will never, ever doubt he is loved. The real revenge is giving him a life so good, so full of safety and joy and hope, that the people who tried to break him are left with nothing but regret. The real revenge is living so well they have to live with the memory of what they lost. And they will. For the rest of their miserable lives. And as for me, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But I'll never stop fighting for him. Because family isn't about blood. Family is about who shows up. And I showed up. Every damn day. And I'll keep showing up. For the rest of my life.